Hey guys, how you doing? Mario from Hashtag Sports here. Now that we are officially into the off season, the NFL off season for the 2020 season, we can start breaking down some numbers and starting to look at what's going to probably happen in the near future when free agency opens on March 18th. We're opening up this new series called Unbalanced. What are we going to do? We're going to start analyzing the cap, the current players on the roster, some free agents that are available for all the 32 teams. So before we continue on to the video, hit that subscribe bell if you want to get more NFL content from Hashtag Sports. Okay guys, so what we're going to be covering here in the Unbalanced series is, number one, we're going to cover each team's projected salary cap. Now, I say projected because nobody really knows what the salary cap could be by the time this video comes out, by the time the free agency hits it on March 18th. So we're just going to go over the team's current projected salary cap given to us by overthecap.com. Our next part, we're going to look at the roster. All right, each roster, current players that are under contract with the team. We're then going to take a look at how many picks and what those picks are for each team in the 2020 NFL Draft. We're then going to go over team-specific free agents. What are some free agents that the team would like to re-sign and or just let go? We're then going to explore some NFL free agents, guys that are going to be coming up that this team could pick up. And last but not least, we're going to go over probably the sorest subject with your team, the cap casualties. All right, let's be honest, everybody. The Cincinnati Bengals didn't have exactly the storybook 2019 season as they wanted to, and it's so weird because when you come into a season, you're hoping that the GM and the head coach are on the same page. The Cincinnati Bengals have Zach Taylor coming into his second season this year, and you're going to have Mike Brown, who's going to be going into his 30th NFL draft. Now, the drafts have not been very kind to Mike Brown over the years. There have been some hits and some misses that have been going on with him. But I mean, securing the number one overall pick is something that a lot of teams would like to have right now. Amazingly enough, over the 30 years that Mike Brown has been at the helm, he's only drafted 3 quarterbacks in the first round. 1992, they took David Klingler. In 1999, they took Akili Smith. And the last time they took a quarterback number one overall was Carson Palmer back in 2003. Currently, the Cincinnati Bengals have about roughly around $46 million over the cap to play with in free agency, and they actually have 53 players under contract right now. Now that's not barring any guys they may cut in that time, any players that they may acquire in that time. Remember, when the official offseason hits, rosters are going to be at 90, so there's going to be a lot of guys going in and out of there. All right, so currently the Cincinnati Bengals have 7 picks at their disposal in the 2020 draft. They have the 1st, 33rd, 65th, 104th, 147th, and 180th and 215th if they happen to stay put where they are. If they happen to stay put, their rookie draft pool is roughly going to cost them around $12 million, a little over $12 million, leaving them after taxes with $42 million roughly to spend in free agency between March 18th and the beginning of the draft. Now, I know I said at the onset that the Bengals have $46 million of projected cap as it is. It's not a straight swap. I just wanted to make that clear right now. You're not just going to take $12 million of the rookie pool, subtract it from 46, and that's what you have. The way that it works in the NFL is that because drafted player will more than likely take the place of a player that's currently on the roster, and after they make those cuts, that's where you're going to get the difference of it. So you're going to take the rookie pool, and you take the rookie pool minus, I think it's around $510,000 times how many picks the team has, and then that's how you're going to derive the rest of the cap for the team. All right, as far as the free agents of the Cincinnati Bengals, there are 3 names that really come to mind. A.J. Green, Tyler Eifert, and Darqueze Dennard. These are 3 guys that, you talk about Eifert and Dennard really only making roughly around $5 million last year, and A.J. Green, as far as Spot Track is concerned, is projected to make around $9.1 million. You're talking about a bunch of these guys. There's not much really to say as far as Eifert is concerned. He hasn't been a guy that's been able to stay healthy for the Bengals. He's only started, He only started 8 games in the past 4 years. That's not the type of consistency that Zach Taylor is really looking for in Cincinnati. And when you talk about Dennard, he's roughly around the same same path. But in 6 years in Cincinnati, he's only started 24 games, only has 22 passes defended, and 3 interceptions in his years in Cincinnati. And you start to see this with a lot of new coaches that are going to start to get their players into their system. I think Denard and Eifert could be productive players. Eifert's nearing 30. Denard is still pretty young. And AJ Green I believe he's going to be 31 going into next season, if I'm not mistaken. But you talk about 3 guys who could possibly cost the Bengals anywhere between 20 and 25 million off their cap next year. And I just don't know if that is in the long-term plans. Usually when you see a regime change as far as a coach goes, you're going to see a lot of new players come in, and a lot of the other players will be left by the wayside. So as far as the Bengals are concerned, of these 3, I mean, they could sign all 3 of them if they wanted to cap-friendly deals, kick the can down the road. I think they're going to start looking for new blood in free agency and or the draft. Now, one player that the Cincinnati Bengals could look to sign this offseason would be Robbie Anderson. Anderson is just a straight burner. I mean, this guy is very exciting to watch. He has accumulated 207 receptions in his 4 seasons in New York, starting 47 games. Only has 20 touchdowns to his credit, though, which may keep his number down for the Cincinnati Bengals. But you got to think of the opportunity to put Anderson on the other side of John Ross, who's going to be coming up in a contract year after 2020. He offers you that burner type guy, and will definitely give teams in the AFC North something to think about if you put both of those guys on each side. Plus, it'll cover the Cincinnati Bengals if they're unable to get a deal for Ross in the upcoming year. Another player that the Cincinnati Bengals might want to add if they're thinking of moving on from AJ Green would be Geronimo Allison. Now, as talked about with Anderson, he would be like that burner type that you would have across from John Ross to definitely give teams something to think about. Allison is more of that Tyler Boyd type. So whereas Anderson would be comparable to Ross, Allison is more of that big-bodied guy that would go and get the tough yards and those first downs. Opposite of Tyler Boyd. Allison, in a contrast to Anderson, he only has 89 receptions in his 4 years, playing in only 46 games, only having 14 starts. So it's a really raw prospect, and because his numbers are what they are and who he's played with, it gives the Bengals a chance to get a guy at very cheap for the next few years. Now, another guy who is very interesting, if the Cincinnati Bengals decide not to re-sign Darqueze Dennard and they decide to go in a different direction, would be Eli Apple. Now, Apple, true, the Cincinnati Bengals would be his 3rd team. Usually when players go to their 3rd team, they're a little bit more affordable in that respect. If we're looking at the numbers for Apple, 48 games, he has 33 passes defended, only 3 picks, but in that time, he has 233 tackles. So this is a guy who's a big physical corner who's he's gonna come up and help and support the run. Something that the Cincinnati Bengals definitely need in that division, and especially with Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, and all those guys in there. So Nick Chubb. I mean, the list goes on, and the Steelers with Connor. If you're talking about that. Having a big physical corner on the edge there that is able to stop the run and is not afraid to get his nose dirty is something that the Bengals might want to explore. So the final player in our quartet of free agents that the Cincinnati Bengals might want to try to take a look at would be Ronald Darby. Now, Darby, he's played 3 years with Philly, 2 years with Buffalo. He actually has more starts with the Buffalo Bills than he does with the Philadelphia Eagles, 29-27. But if you look at the rest of his stats, I mean, he's got 251 tackles, 65 passes defended. For Ronald Darby in his time. Plus, that little caveat, he does have a Super Bowl ring, so maybe he's going to bring some of that championship pedigree over with him. Just like Apple, though, he's a guy that's going to be on his 3rd team if he signs with the Cincinnati Bengals. Hopefully, a little bit more of affordable of a contract, but once again, if the Cincinnati Bengals want to move on from Darqueze Dennard, Ronald Darby could be in their sights. And now we come to everyone's favorite thing, possible cap casualties for your team. Now, these are the things that you really don't want to look at, but there's things that could possibly happen either due to the draft or due to the direction of the team. There are certain players that may not be with the team any longer. The first guy on the list has got to be Andy Dalton. He is set to make $17.7 million this year. He's 33 years old, with the Cincinnati Bengals securing the 1st overall pick, and more than likely that pick being Joe Burrow. It seems like the tenure of Andy Dalton in in Cincinnati is over. The Bengals will be able to save an extra $17 million without taking any dead money bomb. Dalton would probably hit the free agent market, not getting very much. He definitely won't. I don't think he'll get 17.7 million, but if there's a team out there that's in transition that can use his services, they'll probably do that. As far as the case of Drake Kirkpatrick and Cordy Glenn, you're talking about Kirkpatrick, who only played 6 games last year, and he ended the season on IR. You're talking about Cordy Glenn. He only played 6 games as well, and he's been paid over roughly around $17 million to play in 19 games over the past 2 seasons. With the high picks that the Bengals have secured, obviously having the worst record in the league, they could definitely fly in the first pick in the second round. They can get one of the tackles that are probably going to fall to them due to all the skill position depth that's going on with the 2020 NFL draft. They could take Burrow at number 1. They could stay put at 33 and end up getting probably the second or third best tackle on the board. So you got to think they're going to have Williams coming back next season, who ended up having to miss this entire season. He's going to be coming back. It's like having an extra first-round pick of a lineman. You can get your bookend offensive lineman to help protect Burrow. You make some moves in free agency for wide receivers and a corner. Some of the corners that you have probably won't cost as much as Kirkpatrick, but I mean that's an option for you. Kirkpatrick, I feel it fair to mention, Kirkpatrick also comes with a $2.8 million dead money bomb, which the Bengals can absorb if they happen to make some of these other cuts. All right, now that we've come to the conclusion of the Unbalanced for the Cincinnati Bengals, here's basically what we covered. Currently, right now, projected per overthecap.com, the Cincinnati Bengals are just over $46 million in available cap space that they're able to spend during free agency, which begins on March 18th. Given their rookie pool, if they stay where they are, given the calculations in there, they're going to be around $42.5 million right now. If you project the cuts that they may do, if they're getting rid of Kirkpatrick, if they're going to move on from Dalton, if they're going to move on from Glenn, that adds a lot of money with minimal dead cap to the Cincinnati Bengals in the tune of $35.6 million, which then rounds them out to about $78 million this offseason starting in free agency if they decide to move on from those players. I mean, if you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan and you were upset at how the 2019 season played out, I completely understand. But you have a lot of new toys and a lot of new things to go into this offseason, especially having the number 1 pick in the draft. You have a high pick in the second, you have the highest pick in the second round, and in every subsequent round, actually. You could trade back, get more picks, get more bodies in the camp, or if you got $78 million to play with, the Cincinnati Bengals find themselves in a great position going into this 2020 offseason. So once again, thank you for joining us for our debut episode of the Unbalanced series covering the Cincinnati Bengals. Remember, we got 31 more teams to go, so stick around. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want more NFL content here from Hashtag Sports, and we'll be seeing you guys next time.